My name's Wes Maebe. We're in the Park Studios in Wembley, where I've been recording drums for the new Rock Goddess album, and we're just going to take you through what we've got on the kit, so you get an idea of, you know, different mic techniques, various possibilities, and hope you enjoy. So let's start with the kick. We've got this big old Yamaha here, and I kind of, depending on the style of music, I'll either go for 2 mics or 3 on the kick, because this is a heavier record. I've gone for 3. So let's start with this guy here. This is the AKG D12. You'll probably know the sort of egg-shaped one with the green ribbon on it, which is the D112, and this is its parent. Basically, it's the original D12. Very old mic, and I particularly love it on kick. There's a bigger version of it, which is the D30, which is sort of, you know, the John Bonham kick mic, and it has very similar characteristics. I usually have that, you know, by the sound hole, not exactly inside, but sort of, you know, just looking into the sound hole. Getting it inside is quite tricky, but I'm using a different mic for the very inside, and also it has to, you know, you have to leave some room because this skin is going to move, you know, so if you're right against it, this is going to touch the mic. We'll supplement that with this crazy thing right here. A lot of you drummers will probably, you know, be familiar with the sub kick, and this is basically the same thing. It's an old Yamaha NS10 speaker driver, and I don't know, there's something magical about it. You know, probably the material of the cones, because they don't make these anymore because they ran out of that material. And there's something about the response of that speaker, basically, you know, wired as a microphone rather than a loudspeaker. You know, because every speaker is a diaphragm, so you can use any speaker as a mic, but for some reason this NS10 really does the job. And yeah, so that just generates the sub, you know, that's just creating that woo, that wool that you want, that big bottom at the low end. Supplement that with the D12 and you get some punch from that, and you get the low end from that, and it still translates quite punchy. Still gives you a nice transient. And then inside, right on the pillow, I've got this guy, the Shure Beta 91 PZM mic. You probably come across it a lot in live situations where they just dump these into the kick. For me, it's mainly that attack. You know, it's right by the beta, so you're gonna get that, you know, hammer on the nail kind of thing. You know, and you know, we'll talk about EQ in a different episode, I'm sure. But you know, it's that sort of 3 to 5K metal, that tick stuff. And that really does very well for that. So that's yeah, that's what I have on kicks in general. I mean, you know, there's other mics. You don't have to stick to this. So you know, you can have the Audix stuff is really cool. A lot of old schoolers use Electro Voice RE20s in the kick. You've got the Shure say 52. You know, any of those combinations always works. Obviously, if you have a sort of jazzy kit or a drummer who doesn't have a sound hole in there, then you know, you can't put the inside kick. But if you do want attack from the beta, you could mic it from the other side. You know, you could put like a 57 or something on the other side to get that hit, that attack from the beta on the skin. But don't forget to flip the phase on that, because it'll be 180 degrees out of phase with these guys, so you need to flip that to supplement. And yeah, experiment and have fun with that. So what do we have here? We've got 2 mics on the top, and one at the bottom, which we'll show you later. In this instance, I've got trusted old Shaw SM57 on the snare, and I supplement that with a small diaphragm condenser mic, and my favorite for that is the Advanced Audio CM1084. It's cardioid. It's inspired by the Neumann KM84, so you know that works as well. And you can experiment, you know, as with anything. There are no hard and fast rules for any of this. So I've got these two. You sort of have to play around a little bit with the position, because what I use a lot on snares as well is a Sennheiser 441, which is a big old mic with a silver grill on it, and you need to sort of figure out where the actual diaphragm is, because if these guys aren't lined up, that you're going to have a phase problem. You know, you can check that quickly when you're recording. You put the two channels up, and if it sounds thin, chances are there's something going on with the phase. So you can either use the phase flip on your mic pre or your console, or you know, sort of shift these around a little bit so you can figure out where the phase is. Another good trick to check if you don't have phase meter is to pan hard left and hard right, and if it sounds like really weird because one of them's pushing and the other one's pulling, you get this kind of almost motion sickness feeling in your ears. You've got a phase problem, so just flip it around. Other things to do as well is have your main snare top mic there, and a cool trick is to use similar mic to this, sort of overlooking the rim, so it's looking that way. That can work really well, and some people even mic the side, just the side of the shell, so you get more of that resonance. You know, I mean, this drum, it's got that bang. So if you want that really cranky dang dang snare, then you could mic the shell with that as well. And then to supplement the top, you know, again, it's a matter of taste. I've got the same mic, the SM57, underneath, so it's basically right underneath the snare here, sort of looking at the snares. So you know, if you want that rattle from the snare on the bottom, because sometimes the top mics don't pick that up. You get the attack and you get the punch, but then if you want that really old school, you don't get that from the top sometimes. So if you mic it from underneath, you can focus on that rattle, and there's some really cool tricks that you can do with compression and EQ for that as well. And again, phase, because when you hit a snare, the air is moving away from these mics, but the air is being pushed into the other one, so you have to flip the phase. Again, just to make sure that everybody's receiving the same kind of waveform. So yeah, that's our snare. Moving on to the meat and the potatoes. The toms. In this case, we've got 2 rack toms and the floor tom. Again, you know, whatever works. You know, I've used big diaphragm condensers on toms, which can really work. But in this case, again, you know, this is a rock record, so we want punch, we want attack, we want that transient response. So I've got the trusted Sennheiser MD421s on both rack toms and the floor tom, and usually, you know, it's kind of point and shoot with toms. Obviously, you know, you have a drummer who knows how to tune a kit properly. You know, the mic is going to pick up what it hears. It's not because, you know, you've spent $7 on a mic, it's going to make your rack tom sound amazing. If it's tuned badly, it's going to sound badly. So but these guys are just really good at dealing with toms. They're great on guitar amps as well, but you know, we're talking about drums, so we'll stick to drums. I kind of tend to go kind of looking, you know, if you look towards where the stick is gonna hit, it's that sort of extrapolation point, you know, because they're usually gonna hit somewhere around here. And also tom fills are, you know, they're fireworky, so those mics are in danger of being hit quite a lot, so it's good to keep them out of the way. So you know, I kind of have them looking at that impact point slightly over the edge, so you get a bit more resonance as well from the shell. And a good thing to remember on these mics is that they have a little switch right at the connector. So right here, you'll find, you know, if you Google this, you'll get a real good close-up of this. One of them says M and the other one says S. One stands for music and the other one for speech. So sometimes when you plug these in, you go, they sound really bad. Chances are somebody put them on speech, which is like, you know, a speech-focused EQ curve is where music is more flat. So always make sure they're switched to M for music, unless you want a particular sound, and then you could just play around with it. Yeah, so I love these on toms. Again, no hard and fast rules. You can use whatever. I've seen a lot of AKG 414s on toms. Floor tom can be a bit, you can treat that a bit more as a kick as well, so you can do the D12 thing or the RE20 or the Audix D6, D5 kind of job. Or another classic that's used a lot in the studios is a Neumann U47 FET. But again, if you've got very hard hitting players, the large diaphragms, because of their nature, because they are larger, are quite sluggish in responding. So if you've got somebody who could bang, the diaphragm is just going to go, oh, what was that? Oh yeah, all right, I got it. As opposed to a small diaphragm, which is, you know, it's got a smaller frequency response, but it just deals with those impacts a lot better. So it's just a question of taste and a question of accommodating the playing style.